And Charlie Shore, who is our associate scientist and also grant writer, is going to bring you the introductory comments. Charlie, want to take it away?
Well, thanks for that intro, Adam. Contrary to popular opinion, I do have a face, not a working web camera. I received my. How did I get involved with Bio for Climate? I received my master's in toxicology from the University of Cincinnati School of Medicine. And I immediately went into what is known as paper toxicology, which is assessing risk, human health risk, from various hazards, environmental hazards. The assumptions that the EPA used were so ultra conservative that they were completely unfeasible. For example, the carcinogens, they have what are called 10 to the -6 risk factors. And these are 1 in a million chance of excess risk of developing cancer from exposure to this compound. Now, this led to incredibly low concentrations in soils and waters that had to be cleaned up by the people who spilled there. Sometimes the concentrations were so low they were below instrument detection limits. I don't know how you clean something up that you can't detect, but somehow they did it. And this gave me the first of my 2 insights. There's only 2 things I've learned since I've gotten out of all schooling. The first of my 2 insights was that humans tend to overprotect themselves and to embellish their own health to an extreme that is completely unrealistic. I thereafter became interested in ecotoxicology because it became apparent to me that the real victims of many of our chemical spills and hazards and so forth were what we call ecoreceptors, which is everything else besides humans. And so I did that work for a number of years. Much more complicated to do this kind of work than it was to do human health, but I thoroughly enjoyed that part. And I came to the conclusion that not only were these species being threatened by chemical hazards, but probably even more importantly, by the fact that their habitats were being destroyed by overdevelopment and a variety of other factors. And so I said, I think what I really want to do is to study that aspect. So I learned a little GIS, Geographic Information Systems, to try and better understand how these animals, migratory routes, breeding grounds, just living quarters were being interrupted by the various developments that humans were causing. And I was even told by an ecologist that the worst thing that has happened to our furry little friends is the amount of impermeable surfaces which we have developed, which both break up the hydrological cycle and again destroy their habitats. So I went into GIS and thinking that I could pick up a job in that particular area, and I found out when I came out that they were scarcer than hen's teeth. And so I wound up working for an unnamed county in Virginia. Several years before I was hired, there was a very active ecological component, spatial component to the GIS work that was being done out there. But then the Republicans swarmed in like the Mongolian horde, and they took over the Board of Supervisors, and that program was canceled. And again, everything else became oriented towards human beings. property values, parcel center lines, addresses, police stations, those type of things. So I did that work for about a decade or so until I retired. And in retirement, I said I really miss working with the environment, and I'm going to try and help out where I can. I did initially try several of the more traditional approaches, the political approach, lobbying, the technological approach, the protests. In 2015, I was fortunate enough to hear about a conference by this startup group called Biodiversity for a Livable Climate. And I met Dr. Adam Sachs, who I was very impressed with. And it was a one-day conference in DC, and I became enamored with the speakers, with the topic matter. And shortly thereafter, I decided to volunteer my time. And I learned through Dr. Sachs and through Adam, and having taken some systems coursework locally here, I realized that the work I had done in the past had been very reductionist. For example, looking at a single chemical compound in an isolated environment, basically a laboratory. It was a very constrained and, again, I think unrealistic approach. And I started to learn about the second thing that I learned, which was that it's much more wholesome to look at things holistically and to understand the interconnectedness between the various both species and the geophysical features which define their environment. And so I signed up with Bio for Climate. I've done a little work developing a compendium, and I've also done a fair amount of fundraising and basic organizing our data. And I look forward to many years of being able to continue to do this. We have three distinguished speakers today. The first is Jan Lambert, who was a pioneer in the proposal to restore natural water cycles. The second is Anna Gilbert-Muhammed, who is from NOFA, Mass. And the third is Alfred Brownell. He was an attorney who has been working actively, being able to restore forest land in Liberia. And Paul, I'll give it to you to elaborate on our speakers today.